welcome everyone to Aisha Speaks Truth. I'm your host, Aisha, and gosh, there's so much happening in the news today we have to cover. And I definitely had to bring a special guest with me today to help cover what's happening in Israel and Iran, and also now as Donald Trump has brokered a ceasefire. So I've been gone for like a week and came back to a ton of news, including the MAGA movement, where there seems to be a split between conservative voices. So we will hit on that as well. First off, though, I want to talk about this ceasefire that Donald Trump first announced on his Truth Social, which I was super excited about to read. And then shortly after that, we see that Iran dropped a missile on Beersheba, and then Israel retaliated with a 50 to 52 warplanes being sent to Iran. And then Trump intervenes again and asks for Bibi Netanyahu to bring back those warplanes, which he responded accordingly. And now we see that the ceasefire is currently holding. So congratulations to Donald Trump for getting that done, for helping us to keep his promise for us to have peace within the Middle East, and for him to do everything he can. Of course, this is following the major attack we saw on the three nuclear facilities by the United States. And I want to take a moment to congratulate those servicemen and women, our service members, who were part of that mission, because you don't see them being congratulated in the mainstream media, nor do you see them being congratulated among conservative voices like Candace Owens, who are a lot of people who she's all over the media right now. A lot of people are bringing her on to talk about this issue, since she stands against Israel and just have this disdain for Bibi Netanyahu. But I want to thank our service members who carried out this mission so well, who spent the training and had the knowledge and the skill enough to directly hit these facilities without any Iranian casualties. There hasn't been any reports of any Iranian casualties. They carried 30,000 bombs 36 hours for 36 hours on the B2 stealth or Spirit B2 Spirit aircrafts, and skillfully did this. So I want to thank them for their training. I want to thank them for carrying out a successful mission and also keeping with Trump's agenda. We don't see Trump initiating a regime change, which that was not his initiative at all. We don't see a war with people, boots on the ground, soldiers on the ground. We just took out the nuclear facilities, which, by the way, not only did Donald Trump say that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons or nuclear sites built, but also we had past presidents, if we can put that up, past presidents that also said the same thing. That they, since 1995, we're seeing these Bill Clinton, we've seen George W. Bush, Barack Obama, all of them are stating this. And then finally we have Donald J. Trump. I thought this was really good. He said, this is Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Kind of keeps it still very much professional, at least in this instance. But this has been talked about for years, and nothing has been done about it. And we've seen time after time peace deals being broken, as we saw even with the ceasefire deal. It's so, shaky, if you will, within the Middle East. And, we're trying to understand how politics is done in Iran. We're trying to understand the theology of Iran, which is intertwined, which I feel like a lot of us don't understand in the West, because we try to do this whole thing where it's a separation of church and state, which that was not what Thomas Jefferson meant in his original letter about separation of church and state. But I digress there. That's a whole nother issue. But today, with the we're getting to now the ceasefire deal being held, it look like we're doing pretty good with this right here. And you have also the media, CNN, mainstream media is also saying that, the destruction of these nuclear sites is, we got to look into this. Obviously, when you destroy these nuclear sites, you do have to be careful with the radiation, etc., so that you can't really get an immediate analysis quickly. You have to wait a few days. But we do have reports from the IAEA, which first of all, they confirmed that, Iran had already enriched up to 60%. So we needed to do something about that. Secondly, now we have reports coming in that the three nuclear sites have been obliterated. And of course, I believe we'll get more intel on that as we get more reports and they're able to get into the ground, able to check out these facilities, etc., which we knew that there have been many reports from the IAEA saying that in Iran, they had turned off the cameras, etc., that they needed to monitor that nuclear site that they had to see how much they were enriching it. They weren't being completely transparent, basically. But that's kind of been taken care of now, thanks to Donald Trump, and congratulations to him for, again, making sure that there were no casualties, Iranian citizens. and making sure that also he holds his promise of no boots on the ground. Now, hopefully that never ever changes, but that's what we are right now. Now, speaking of this uncertainties and all that, there's another issue that was hitting the media too that I noticed as well, which is the whole idea of the oil in Iran and the sanctions, etc. And in the recent, I believe it was the NATO meeting, world meeting that they had, world leaders meetings that they had, he mentioned it looks like there was going to be a pullback on these sanctions in Iran. He said he does not want to hurt the Iranian economy since after this explosion took place, they're going to need as much funds as they can get to be able to rebuild Iran. And you see that that's his whole strategy of the time. He doesn't want to obliterate the entire nation, but he does need to take out these threats that we have. And so speaking of which, I do want to mention that our markets are shaky, but gold isn't. And so we do have, I want to mention this company, Augusta Precious Metals, that is a company that I personally recommend. I think that they are an amazing, outstanding company with great ethics and customer service. They've been named Money Magazine's best overall gold IRA company 3 years in a row, 2022, 2023, 2024, and Investopedia calls them the most transparent pricing company. That's saying a lot in an industry where gimmicks and silver scams still exist. Augusta is A plus rating with the BBB, AAA with the Business Consumer Alliance, and they've got over 1,000 five-star reviews from customers who were really satisfied. They also offer something rare, a highest buyback guarantee. So if you ever want to sell your gold back to them, you can do it with peace of mind. And check this out. They have zero setup, custodian, or storage fees for up to 10 years. Everyone qualifies for that. Plus, there's a 7-day money back guarantee when you open your account. That means there's no pressure, just time to decide if it's right for you. Augusta is big on educating people, and this is one of the reasons why I really love this company, is that they come from a standpoint of educating, so you can make the right decision for yourself. They actually help you to avoid the common traps and misinformation some companies use, and you get to choose your own gold and silver products. They don't push anything on you because, again, their reps don't receive any commission from you signing up. So really, it's just educating you so that you make the best decision, and they keep you in charge, as it should be. And here's a cool bonus. Even NFL Hall of Famer Joe Montana, he's not just their paid spokesperson, but he actually is a customer as well as Augusta Precious Metal. So if you're looking for a long-term, honest support for your retirement investment, Augusta Precious Metals really delivers, and it is the one that I will 10 out of 10 recommend to you. Okay, so I want to bring on a special guest to help us dissect everything that's been happening in social media. So one of the major things is that I've discovered recently is supposedly this split in the MAGA movement between conservative voices. We see Candace Owens, for example, is one. Tucker Carlson has also said some things that he doesn't agree with on Donald Trump's stance on, especially this war in Israel. And then there's this whole recent interview I saw, or I guess a video with Candace Owens, where she pulls a clip up of Ted, I believe it's Senator Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson talking, and one of the main points they make is that the Israel of 1948 is not the Israel that's mentioned in the Bible. And so I think it's just kind of served to kind of just throw out that the Jews are no longer the chosen people, or whatever they're trying to get at, when the Apostle Paul, whose main job was to speak to the Gentiles, his main job, that was his main ministry, to speak to the Gentiles, often says in the word of God, first to the Jew, then to the Gentiles. And then you have Romans 11, which really sums up what God's plan is for Israel. And, we do have there, again, they're going to be Jews, they're going to be Gentiles, where some of us are going to accept Jesus, some of us are not. That's on both sides. Okay. But it is clear that God loves that nation. He loves the people of Israel. He loves the Jewish nation. They're the one that holds a heritage. There was a promise, and he will not accomplish that promise. And if we have to call into account all the one promise in the Old Testament that he gave to Israel, then we got to call into account everything in the Old Testament, the promises that he has made. So I think it's a slippery slope to say that. But to help me dissect the recent interview that Candace Owens had with Piers Morgan, I guess we say interview, I brought in a special guest, Inez Cyrus. She is a bold voice for freedom and fierce advocate for women's rights. She was born under Iran's Islamic regime. So we got somebody who actually has that knowledge and has been there, understands the theology, understands the eschatology of Iran. She escaped at 15 and became a proud U.S. citizen in 2010. Today, she speaks out through her, the Glazov gang, and works with groups like Jihad Watch and the David Horowitz Freedom Center to expose the truth about life under Sharia and the fight for human rights. Inez, welcome in, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. I love having you on, honestly. If you guys missed my last podcast with her, which was the one right before this one, please go and check that out. Her knowledge is insane. I also get a little bit tongue-tied talking to her because she's just so brilliant in this area. So I had to bring her on to dissect certain things that I saw Candace Owens was saying, because I really want you guys to have truth. I really want you guys to understand all aspects of this, even the spiritual, which we cannot neglect if we are Christians. So we're gonna go ahead and pull up that clip from Candace Owens and Pierce Morgan. So we can pull up that first portion of the clip.
In this way, just name something. Gas prices, just something that the average American can relate to.
Well, you're not going to have a correlation between Zionism and gas prices in America. Of course, you're not.
No, I'm just giving
obviously
you an example.
there are,
to just tell me
there are
one
obvious
thing that
tangible
because
benefits.
what your argument here is like, well, you get a pat on the back and you can say that you helped this country, which was formed in 1948 by pretending to be refugees, if you will, and being invited into the homes of Palestinians, the horrific story
well, they weren't
of what happened.
pretending to be refugees. They were people fleeing a Holocaust.
Let's be clear. Let me finish my statement.
What do you mean
when
pretending to be refugees?
Let me finish my statement. When I say pretending to be refugees and being invited into the home, you would think that these people were helpless and were going to be grateful to the people that hosted them. People like Muhammad Hadid, Bella Hadid and Gigi Hadid's father, who was an infant at this time in his mother's arms. She had just given birth. They had invited these refugees because of the goodness of their heart. And then one day they return home and their doors are locked and they are told that if you try to enter, you are going to be shot and killed. That is the reality of how Israel was established as a state. Okay, that is not a stain that you can wipe from history. Most Americans growing up actually believe what happened was that, okay, it was a little messy. That's what happens after wars. Borders get changed. But at the very least, they were given money. I mean, you've lived here for hundreds of years. Here's money for your property. No, that's not what happened. They were forced out of their homes at gunpoint.
Listen,
and it's wrong. So we get to be the nation pat on the back. According to you, the thing that America gets. Let me finish. I'm going to let you finish. It's your show. We can. But let me finish. Your argument is that what we get to be is that nation that keeps supporting it as they continue to move their borders in this way. Now we're seeing that incursion into Gaza, and we are certainly going to see it by the end of this administration in the West Bank, because, like I said, that is why Miriam Adelson gave Trump $100 million.
Look, as you know, I oppose what the Israeli government is doing now in Gaza. I oppose the expansion of settlements on the West Bank. I think all of that is completely wrong. I do think America supports Israel because it remains the only democracy in the Middle East, and that's an important...
They're not a democracy. Stop saying that, Pierce. You know better.
Well, they have elections.
All right. Inez, can you help us out here on Israel's establishment and the pretending to be refugees? Let's just start there. What she said about their establishment in 1948. So this is following, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is following the Holocaust. Correct? So right after the Holocaust, we have this almost like this displacement where, you know, and if we back up, even if we back up, they were there thousands of years prior. Right? So they have like a long history of being of that land being theirs. Can just go in for me and just share with me your thoughts on this.
I'm going to do it first with a very simple example for most people to tangibly feel the difference. I'm a homeowner. I have a rental property. I have not been to that location, to that zip code, to that door a good 3 years now. I have gone through 2 different tenants. And I'm planning to keep the rental property. In 5 years, I can walk to that door, knock at the door, and tell my tenant that when your lease is up, you're going to have to move out. And my tenant will go to court and say, she's trying to invade my property. I own the property. There are rules and regulations, yes. But when I decide to not renew a lease with my tenant, or stop renting the property, law is on my side. That's exactly what happened in 48. The myth of the Israel we see today is not the Israel in the Bible. Overlap a map. Overlap a map. From the first time Israel has been mentioned on the Bible, the time of then, go get a map of that time, put it down, grab today's today's map, put it on top. You see, not only Israel is the same Israel in the Bible, it has actually shrunk in size because it has been invaded. Okay? And it's not a hard thing to do. Either you're a Zionist or not. You can be atheist. Hey, you can even be a Candace Owen who thinks she's God herself. Just put a map together. Facts are facts. So location wise, it's the same holy land as we speak of in the Bible. It is the same holy land. No, it's portion of the holy land. As far as pretending to be refugees, if you want to talk pretendance, Palestinians, which I dissected the Palestinian versus Palestinian on the first time I was on your program.
Right.
So I'm not going to go over that again, but let's just, for sake of the audience, say Palestinians. Palestinians don't exist. The race doesn't exist. The history doesn't exist. The land of Palestine doesn't exist. There's no trace of a drop of a blood of a Palestinian. But they've been pretending to be refugees in refugee camps, getting money from Western countries, killing Jews at Gaza border, and nobody's saying they're pretending to be refugees, right? They've been given a home. They've been given a home, and they chose to take back what was invaded originally from the Jews. Let me try not to get this too complicated. What Candace Owen is saying from 48 to today is, again, baseless, no facts behind it, just an anti-Semite trying to get more clicks. I normally try not to address Candace Owen because I don't think she's worthy of much attention. However, proven fact is Candace Owen has a very deep hatred for Jews, not Netanyahu, for Jews. She will sit there and she will use terminologies against Jews that are said and done in the Quran by Allah of Muslims, who also has told them, until you kill all Jews, I will not let you have peace. So that should set the tone of who Candace Owen is. Did that answer the question?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Of
And
course.
I think, and it's also, I'm not sure if she's, I'm gonna respect her for what she brings to the table, what her gift or skill, etc. But
Oh,
it's
let me
another
interrupt you
thing
for a second. What is her skill?
her investigative commentary is what I'm referring to. It's her
Right,
ability to
but
break things down.
right, but
Yeah.
here's what I would like to, as an investigative journalist who has proven record of factually even guessing what's the next step of which government. Candace Owen doesn't have the skills. Candace Owen pays a skilled investigative journalist like me. She doesn't pay me like me to put it together, put it on a teleprompter. She looks at it and she reads it. So if you're giving her credit for skill, she's very good at reading a teleprompter.
Didn't know that. And I think it's also, I want to get into this next clip, but before we get there, as someone who brings this information to millions of people, I think there's some accountability that has to be taken, and you have to make sure that you're try to be as at least as accurate as possible in doing something like this, which is why I want to bring someone like you in that could help dissect this, because I, most like any other American, I'm looking around, and all of our news outlets, they're so biased, and they're pointing out one thing. And if you're an American who just works every day, does a normal life, and then you have to tune into these voices in order to get your information, there's a lot of misinformation that could be had. And if you don't have the time to research it, it seems right, because again, there's facts thrown in. She releases it with confidence, etc. So I'm so glad I have you on here to kind of cut through this noise and bring some truth to this.
Well,
So
also
let's
another thing with just if I could just insert this, the last few days I have been receiving heavy backlash from my own supporters because I brought a different side into the narrative, not as a statement, as a possibility. One of the biggest problem we suffer from here in United States of America today is that we have picked a side and our side is absolutely right. Those on the left, whatever left says, accurate 100%, no confirmation needed. Those on the right, whatever right says, it's 100% correct, no research needed. That is where we need to break the chain. As Christians, as Americans, both have given us free will and the right to have the ability to think for ourselves. It doesn't matter how much fact is in front of you. Let me rephrase that. It doesn't matter how much facts are thrown at you.
Mm,
We all
yeah,
have that ability to think. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to derail your topic, but I'm gonna open this up to what I'm referring to.
yeah,
We just talked about left, talked about right. Candace, who nobody knows where she belongs, but I opened up a possibility that the only reports without evidence, um, you said on your intro monologue, we don't actually have the tangible evidence, the shown satellite videos, or any confirmation that says all of these nuclear sites were completely demolished.
mhm,
We're just taking that word, disregarding possibilities such as this regime for 46 years have had the pattern of hiding their development and their improvements. Many times, many presidents have said, we want to have direct negotiations with Iran, and Iran has always refused.
yeah,
When you're not directly talking to your enemy, information can be manipulated, information can be twisted. My point is, last few days I have brought up few points of what if we didn't? What if the claim of uranium has been moved out of Fardo before the hit is accurate? 400 kilograms of uranium is said to be missing right now. That is enough to build at least 3 nuclear bombs. For us to put our guard down and say, yay, we did it, is a mistake. We need further investigation. We need to cut all ties with this regime and monitor them closely instead of lifting sanctions. And this is coming from an Iranian.
mm,
Listen to me as an Iranian right now. Instead of lifting sanctions, because we want to help them rebuild after the war, we should tighten those sanctions to make sure if they did move the uranium and if the new release of a new facility built in last 2 years under a mountain that is 1600 meters deep, which is 650 meters deeper than Fardo, which means it's untouchable. If the uranium has been moved to that facility, let's make sure they don't have the money to finish the bomb.
mm,
That's my mindset. And it's neither American side or American side of me. It's the logic in me that says, do we trust an unconfirmed information from a monster regime that has blood of Americans, Iranians, Middle Easterns, Europeans, anyone except Muslims on their hand? The answer is no. We don't just put our guard down, give them, their assets back, lift sanctions, and make a possibly somewhat dangerous situation into guaranteed danger, targeting back where Israel and America. I'm sorry, I just had to. I'm trying to kind of sort of introduce myself to your audience as
yeah,
I'm not just going after Candace and questioning her investigative journalism. This is what I do. I breathe investigation, and I'm very good at leaving my emotions out of it. I just talked to you as an American Christian and an Iranian. So when I call Candace Owen out on zero facts and zero interest herself to even know the facts, because I'm the opposite side of her. Okay, sorry, it's all yours.
no, that's good. Thank you so much. Can you answer this for me too? Because I've seen this in reports, and I'm sure we'll probably have some listeners that also have this question. So one is, would the Iranian regime agree to a ceasefire if significant damage wasn't done?
Absolutely. Yes. Reason. The significant damage done or not done to the Fardo facility had played no role in the ceasefire. The agreement to ceasefire was the same reason Hamas has agreed to more than 70 ceasefires. Israel took out 35, that is 35 of top commanders, generals, and chief of IRGC out in 10 days. 35 of them.
Truth, yeah.
They didn't even have enough backup to replace everybody. So it started merging posts inside their military for one man to command two different departments. They also had their supreme leader, Israel had the supreme leader hiding in a bunker in La Vision, Tehran, terrified to come out. So forced to hand over his full supreme leader power over to IRGC, technically declaring a military coup d'etat. That is the reason they agreed to ceasefire, not because they're done with us or with Israel. They just needed that breather that Hamas keeps asking and we keep giving them. They needed the same breather. The nuke had nothing to do with the agreement. The facilities, they were ready for this ceasefire days before. They were out of manpower. They were running short on missiles because Israel targeted their missile factories and missile launchers. And that is why, me personally, on all fronts of personality, nationality, race, naturalization, am extremely disappointed in the ceasefire being called. This regime was over, and we just threw a good chunk of oxygen to breathe back into their fire.
So do you think that you kind of taken this is such a good conversation. I do want to ask you about the other two things that she said, but I'm remembering some things from the NATO world leaders meeting that Donald Trump had, where he was asked, like, do you think that this is going to totally that the ceasefire means that Iran is going to be totally done with building nuclear facilities or building a nuclear weapon? And he says, at least for now. I can't tell you about the future necessarily, or even after me. He mentions that. But you know, I don't. I'm not sure how we can continue on to. I guess there has to be the report, like you mentioned, the full report. I remember seeing something from the IAEA. This is where I'm going with this. That they have satellite footages, of course, of the top of it being obliterated, and what that means for the inside of the facility where they targeted underground. And we don't know. There's not been any reports yet of that nuclear weapons being moved somewhere else. Maybe we'll discover that later.
They are
Hopefully not.
actually, there are confirmed satellite images of 16 trucks on both entrances of Fardo 2 days before we dropped the bomb, coming in, exiting. And that's where the ties are. By the way, for confirmation, the video translated, subtitled of this report of the trucks, uranium moving, Fardo not being touched the way it should be, all of that is available on my Substack, not reported by me. An expert on this has done it, and then I just subtitled and translated it for my American audience to watch. But in that, they show the footages, the satellite images of the trucks coming in, loading, leaving. That is where we have the more possible of part of uranium has been moved. And also, on my second reasoning for saying the movement has happened is when they did the test, there was not enough uranium reach in the air to prove the quantity they were expecting was in Fardo. So now this plays two possibility. Did they not hit the bunker deep enough for the uranium to release, or was the uranium not in there and the bunker was hit deep enough? In both sides, again, it's simply asking the questions and not easily going to bed and say, we did it. No more nuclear threat from Iran. And having 17 nuclear facilities, we targeted, in our understanding with our intelligence and provided material by Mossad and Israel, we targeted 3 of their main, which was Natanz, Fardo, and Esfahan. Now, The new release of information of the newer bunker that is deeper and possibly unreachable by any existing weapon is close to Natanz. So another question is, how did we not have the information about that one?
Hmm.
And if we had the information, were we monitoring that location as well to see if the trucks went from Fardo to that one? You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
I'm not saying one side's lying versus another. I'm just saying there are way too many unanswered questions and enough evidence countering the information from our side for me to not go to bed simply saying we are safe from Mullah's nuclear program. I think that's a little too premature to do.
Okay. If you guys in the comment section would like to get some more information on the research that she just released, let me know in the comment section, and Inez, I'll have you. You can send me the link. I think it's going to be to Live Up to Freedom, right? It's going to be right under that.
liveuptofreedom.substack.com.
Okay.
liveuptofreedom.substack.com. You'll see all the titles will tell you what we're talking about. The new secret facility, what happened to Fardo, all the titles. I don't do clickbait titles. I just have exactly what's in it when you click on it.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, we'll I'll make sure to provide that because I would love for all of us to just be aware of what you know. So if we can play this next clip because I got you for a few more minutes, so we can go ahead and roll that next one.
It is indisputable that Israel moved out of Gaza in 2005 and there was an election and Hamas got elected, right? Now,
Yeah,
I
and
agree
that's
with,
because
I agree with you that I agree with
but
listen,
Bibi
hang on.
Netanyahu was on camera saying that
agree
they were
with you.
going to fund Hamas into power.
Listen,
so they orchestrated
Candace,
that because they wanted to create
Candace,
the
I haven't
solution.
finished. I agree.
All right. So main thing I wanted to pull up from the short portion of this was that she said that Israel orchestrated and funded Hamas into power. I'd love to hear what your expertise is on this.
That's a great myth. And it has been going on for about a good 2 years now by anti-Semites, anti-Zionist, Jew haters. It's an absolute myth. Now, let me break it down because if I don't break it down, then I'm not giving clear information either. Hamas is the Palestinian chapter of Muslim Brotherhood. They have been around Gaza pretty much from mid 40s, close to 1950s. They started being around. They weren't basically declared as Hamas group, but they were the proxies of Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza area, late 40s, early 50s. So that's for the creation. Muslim Brotherhood created Hamas through IRGC. So if you want to be very precise, Islamic Republic of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps created Hamas. Now for the funding. There is zero evidence of Israel or its government funding, meaning writing check or putting money in a suitcase in a back alley, handing it to Hamas. This myth is started because one of the former officials of Israel on a speech one day said, I'm paraphrasing, but something like, Hamas, to my great regret, is Israel's creation. This is where it started. The camera she's talking about. Now, let me break it down. What he was referring to and what did happen was when Hamas started becoming a little bolder in 70s and 80s, Israeli government didn't stop them, arrest them, or kill them. They didn't. They started as being charity groups and building mosques. So Israeli government allowed them to keep their charity status of 501c3, allowed them to continue doing their educational things they were doing in their mosque, in their madrasa or schools. So they didn't stop them from fundraising. That is where they blamed themselves for enabling this monster because they didn't shut him off and shut him down immediately. Then, when Hamas was officially declared or founded as Hamas, the party to run and be elected, that is when the politicians in Israel figured, wait, this might be a good thing. They could counter PLO, the Palestinian Authority. So they didn't shut him down as a political party either. Now, mind you, we should also mention if Israeli government tried to shut down Hamas charities, mosques, schools, or political party, you know what would happen? Candace Owens
Mm-hmm.
would be out there saying
Right.
their freedom is being
Mainstream media.
taken away, human rights are being taken away. So I want to just put this insert. Now, quickly going over it, did Israel create Hamas? No. Did Israel fund Hamas directly by giving them money? No. Did Israel enable Hamas to turn into a political party to run and become the government? Absolutely. Admitted by their own officials, admitted by their own people, admitted by myself. However, that does not translate to what Candace and many other for the last 2 years are saying. They grabbed that one sentence. Hamas, to my great regret, is creation of Israel. He did not say we created and we funded. That's not what he said. He said we neglected to stop them. One, because we didn't want to receive backlash from world saying again, you're oppressing them. Two, we figured a secondary political party against Palestinian authorities would be a good choice for us.
Mm.
So that's the documented official history repeated by Hamas as well. When they release their declaration, they do tell you in there that they are a chapter of Muslim Brotherhood. Heavily, about 2006, by the way, is when Hamas turned into Iran's proxy. That is when IRGC said, listen, guys, we're going to officially and openly fund you, train you, and arm you. You with me? They said, of course, we're with you. And that's when Hamas became what we have witnessed as Hamas.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope
Very
that
much.
answered.
That's so good. Okay. Because I'm pretty, I remember in that interview, I got one more clip I want to play for you though. But I remember her mentioning that that everybody should watch this Bibi Netanyahu documentary. And I believe this is maybe one of the main sources that she gets all the information from. I'm not sure if you've seen that documentary. I haven't.
I have.
I do want to check it out though.
I
You
have. And
have?
here's the thing, there are 7 different documentaries available to watch about Bibi Netanyahu. And you watch all 7 of them and you sit back, you're like, wow, how many personalities this guy got? Because each documentary will show you a very different narrative. There's only one documentary that I have watched, and I would say that's the one I'm going to rely on, that has not given me any narrative. It has shown me events of Netanyahu's life from birth
I
until
wish
today.
all reporters would do that.
Events. Right. And that's the thing. I am working on trying to translate that because that's actually in Farsi, amazingly made by an Iranian, right? Who would have thought an Iranian would care enough to do an unbiased, real documentary of Netanyahu's life?
Wow.
But yeah, unfortunately, again, who's your source? An anti-Semite out there, pro-Palestinian, doing a documentary about Netanyahu? Watching that, why would you watch that? Just take a nap. It's better for your beauty.
I love it. To the documentary that you would recommend, do you know the name of that one?
And again, it is in Farsi. I am working on
Okay.
translating and
Sorry, I missed that.
subtitling it. As soon as I do have authorization from the original company that made the documentary, they have signed off on me in English subtitling it and posting it. As soon as it's ready, I will make sure to send you a link, and then you can promote it on your show for your audience to watch.
Thank you so much. Okay. I got one more clip I want to play for you, and I want to get your feedback, your expertise on this as well. So we can go ahead and roll that next one.
And I quote, Barry Weiss said this verbatim, the Jewish connection to the refugee is not a conspiracy. That's something that we are very proud of. And she was referencing the organization HIAS, and she says it explicitly, which she said what was started by them in the 1880s, which includes immigrants that have come in like Sergey Brin. They are still the organization that is operating at our border right now, okay? That is problematic that we have open borders while we continually and routinely are told that we have to defend somebody else's borders, okay? And again, these never-ending wars in the Middle East at the behest of Israel. Bibi Netanyahu is the one that called for Americans to invade Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, and now Iran, and we've done it. We're told Israel can defend itself, okay? But why do we have currently 2,000 troops that are in Syria under the guise of fighting ISIS? And like I said, we know Israel themselves fund terror. terror adjacent militants like they did to overthrow Assad. And we're done with the BS of, okay, well, they weren't really involved Israel in Afghanistan, because even when we fight those never ending wars, Israel wins. Everybody knows that our boys were out there in Afghanistan guarding poppy fields, okay? And do you know what happened after we allegedly, quote unquote, lost in Afghanistan? What happened to all those poppy fields, those poppy flowers that our military was guarding? Well, the opioid crisis hit America via the Sackler family, who quite literally built the School of Medicine at Tel Aviv University. So we're just done, okay? And there's no way that we're going to go backwards. We're not going to allow you guys to emotionally condition us to go, oh, well, we got to protect Israel because of the Holocaust. It is over. They're imparting a Holocaust. America would like off this crazy train.
Please break this down. So Jews funding open borders, poppy fields.
Okay, well, I can't help it. Candace, you cannot complain about a crazy train when you're the driver of it. Calm down. You can always make a point and stay a lady. I do it all day long. Take a deep breath. It is so hard to concentrate on what she's saying from the level of a scream she's doing in your ear. But I'll do my best. Okay, let's first start with the poppy fields. No. Let's first start with all of these never-ending wars in Middle East in order of Netanyahu or Israel.
Hmm.
The Middle East history is really deep. I mean, very deep. We're talking over 3,600 years. So, wrapping it up, putting it in 10 seconds is impossible. So, here's what I will do. The never-ending wars in Middle East have zero, and I repeat, zero with Israel or any Israeli government. It has everything, and I mean 100%. A new Substack is coming this weekend, and you get the proof there. 100% because of England, France, United States of America. Okay? The history of Middle East shows that until England started being England, Middle East was completely doing its own thing. Were they tribe wars? Of course. Were they blood wars? No. When England started coming in and trying to spread this land, we started having new borders drawn. You want to talk about borders and the borders that we're protecting today? Who do you think drew the border of Afghanistan versus Iran? Israel? Netanyahu? They weren't even there yet. No. Russia and UK did that bordering. That very poppy field that has been a big battle between Iranian and Afghans for so long, that line was drew between that very poppy field to fairly give them both portion of it by Russia and UK. You think Iran started being Islamic Republic of Iran and hate on Jews and chant death to America and death to Jews in Israel from day one? No. Iranians were literally officially the first treaty signed between Persia, back then still named Persia, under the king of Qajar dynasty, not Pahlavi, not the American puppet you all are trying to paint out there right now. The Qajar dynasty's king heard of this new empire, very fancy, thinking if he actually dig a hole from the bottom of his castle, goes few kilometers, will get to US in 1808. But until 1856, Iran and America had no business with each other. But the very first treaty was signed in 1856. You know what was the article of that? United States of America demanded that any American inside Iran committing any crime shall be punished by American laws and no law of the land. My fellow Americans, don't be mad at me. History is history. Netanyahu and Israel were nowhere to be found when that happened. Netanyahu and Israel had nothing to do with the white revolution happened in Iran. And an American who was sent there to help the economy returned his passport to American embassy in Tehran and said, the only difference between me and these people is my place of birth. And that's not big enough of a difference for me to give up on them. 3 days later, he became the first American martyr in Iran fighting for land of Iran. History is complicated. We can't simplify it by a bunch of videos we watched from a bunch of biased people. Truth of the matter is the never-ending wars in Middle East has always been benefited mainly Western countries. Specifically, UK, France, Russia, Soviet Union, not the current Russia, and United States of America. We want to start spreading blame. If we were watching those puppy fields, our boys were, that's how she said it, were watching those puppy fields. It wasn't because of Israel. We went to Afghanistan. Israel didn't. We went to Afghanistan. We went and provided protection for puppy fields for 20 years. And when Taliban came back, you know what Taliban did? Burned it all down. That's all. I'm so sorry because I do need to actually run, but I think that somewhat answered some of the confusion.
Inez, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I thank you so much for being able to break that segment down for us to bring some clarity. I mean, of course, you can even chat GPT some of the stuff that to understand that she's wrong in her session. But I thank you for providing the actual historical context so we can actually go and search ourselves and see the truth on this. Thank you so
Of
much. I
course.
appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. I'll see you next time.
See you soon.
All right, we are discussing times of uncertainty, guys. Emergencies don't wait. So we're going to prepare now with a JACE case. This is a 5 life-saving antibiotics in 1 emergency kit. And you can use code Aisha at jacemedical.com. If you didn't know, it's an emergency set of prescription antibiotics shipped directly to you so you can have them on hand before you need it. But they've just launched a brand new version. Now you can get 2 times the amount of medications for only $20 more. You also have the option to customize this kit, which I just recently did. Mine will be coming soon. I'm super excited about it. But it's the best emergency medication kit on the market. We all know that the supply chain is uncertain. We saw that in COVID-19, and it's a system that is just too fragile. So when it comes to your health, a broken supply chain can be catastrophic. That's why you'll want the JACE case. It's a prescribed set of emergency antibiotics that are delivered to you, and you can already have them on hand before you ever need them. And we saw this certain uncertainty again right in our day and age taking place in North Carolina as well. So when it comes down to it, if we can't predict it, we can't predict when we will need the antibiotics, but we can get ourselves in a position where we have what we need when those uncertainty comes. So get prepared today. You can get your JACE case, and I will give you guys a promo code too, where you can use and get a really good discount from that too. It is Aisha, my name, IESHA, and you can go to jace.com or jacemedical.com. Either one will work, and check out your customized kit. Now, I do have one more video that I want to dissect. Unfortunately, we couldn't get this YouTube video up to play. So I'm going to just read through the transcript. The reason why I think I want to take the time to do this, because I feel on a spiritual level, which I see a lot of times in the mainstream media, this part is neglected, which is why Inez Cyrus brings so much insight, because she doesn't neglect the eschatology of Iran, which you have to understand in order to understand their politics. Okay, they're very distinct from America. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, where we fight for the separation of church and state, this is entwined. Religion is entwined in their laws. And so you have to understand, understand their next move to be militarily strategic, sorry. You need to understand the history. You need to understand the eschatology, what they believe, so that way you understand where they're coming from and what they plan to do and why they plan to do that. So there is a YouTube video from a guy named Tomi Ariami. He is an international prophet. He has been many different countries and prophesied things way before they happen, and you actually see them take place. Okay, so this is one prophet that I rely on, especially considering the fact. I'm gonna get a little vulnerable here, but this is for my people that understand the power of prayer. Considering the fact that when I took to the Lord, what I saw, but with Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, these conservative voices who some look up to, and I again, I admire what they brought to the table in certain instances, but here I have to say that they are completely wrong when it comes to Israel. And when I prayed about this, I laid it out on the altar. I was reminded about the scriptures, Paul's letters to the Galatians about, who bewitched you. And this letter to the Galatians was all to get them back on track to the true word of God. And I felt like the Lord was releasing that in this time, and praying about what was happening with Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and what was being said about Israel. I laid it down without bias before the Lord. And then I felt led to go to my YouTube. I click on my YouTube and this video pops up from a known prophet that I am familiar with, who has been to my church. Again, he is well known around the world. Tomi Ariami. If you don't know him, this would be a great time for you to check out some of his stuff, because he's prophesied things way before they happen, and we see them unfold. So I'm going to read for you some of this transcript. I'll get through as much as I can before we stop our podcast today. But you can also check out this word yourself. Tomi, his name is spelled Tomi, Ariami, Arayyomi. Okay. And he has a very, very recent YouTube video saying why Candace Owens is incorrect. I think we have that footage, or at least a picture of the actual thumbnail, so that way you guys can go check it out for yourself. Unfortunately, we weren't able to load it because of how the video was uploaded on YouTube. But this is how it looks. Iran-Israel conflict, Candace is wrong. And you can watch this entire segment. Now, what he brings to the table is the spiritual aspect and prophetic warnings, prophetic voice into this arena, which we cannot go without. We should be relying more on God and what he says versus Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, mainstream media, etc. And so we need to know what he's saying, because the word of God tells us he doesn't do anything without first revealing to his prophet. And this has been happening since, beginning of time, where he releases these things. It's up to us to listen, to be in a place where we hear it, and also heed to it. So I'm going to read, this is the first part of it. I'm just going to read the transcript, because again, I wish we could load it, but we can't. But so bear with me. Since this is a transcript, there might be some wordings where it's not necessarily clear, because this is an AI tool that kind of puts the words in. And if the person that actually did the video doesn't go in and correct it, some things can be wrong, but I will basically break down for you. I'm not going to do this whole video because it's extremely long, but I'm going to hit certain points for you guys. You can go and watch the video yourself. You can keep the photo up, I guess, as we read it. So determine that in your best ability, Mike. Says, but before we tackle tackle Candace Owens, again, there's a little typo there, so I had to translate that from what I already heard. Before we tackle Candace Owens in the mainstream media and the war for truth, I want to take you back to what the Lord has been saying through prophecy long before the headlines knew where to look. So take a look at this prophecy, and this is where he goes into a prophecy he released back in October 9th. So this is shortly after, probably 2 days after the whole Hamas attack on Israel. He said, it says, it called Iran intensified. What's coming is we're going to see Iran intensified. And there's something about Iran. I heard the enemy say, we cannot let Israel have this peace treaty with Saudi Arabia. What you're going to see coming in the news, you're going to see Iran. You're going to see Iran backing Hamas to do what they're doing, because they're trying to make sure two nations never shake hands. These are the sirens over Jerusalem and the explosions in the sky. They're over Israel, some 300 drones. And that word began, and he explains that word began to unfold almost immediately. So this is what he's talking about, is right before Hamas bombed, right before October 7th happened, there was a peace treaty that was being in the works, that was starting to be in the works between Saudi Arabia and Israel. And when Hamas attacked, you see a flip in Saudi Arabia where they wanted to add to that peace treaty or peace deal that Jerusalem would be the capital for the Palestinians. And it goes back to, again, their eschatology, their beliefs. And so what was inserted in that peace deal, which Israel is never going to agree to, was what they wanted to have done as according to their religion. Okay. And I'm going to get more into that as we progress in this as well. Next portion of this, and this is important to understand too, when I get into the next portion, because whoever holds a narrative also holds the nation. We know that saying. So I'm going to read the next one. Bear with me. And again, you guys can watch this whole thing. I'm just going to hit certain points because I think we need to understand this prophetically. So when Tomi Ariami was on Sid Roth's program, this is what Sid Roth said to him. Tomi, you sent me a word that God showed you so specific, having to do with what's going on in Israel, because that was an intensified Iran on the forefront, and Iran was going to be rallied up to do something against Israel. So when the Hamas thing happened, the Hamas infiltration, the airline, the sea attack that we saw this year, that was back in 2023, the Lord told me to unmask Hamas. This is what Tomi Ariami is telling saying the Lord has told him to do: unmask Hamas and reveal and expose the real face hiding behind Hamas. And this, so I went live on our program and I shared that this is not Hamas. Hamas is the Ponzi. It's the PR face, and it's who they're going to point at saying it's Hamas. This is actually Iran. Candace Owens has raised a fair question. Many are, as of many have, she sympathized with the Palestinian plight. She believes Israel has been aggressive, perhaps even complicit in regional destabilization, and she's not alone. You cannot understand Iran's aggression without understanding their eschatology. Iran does have an eschatology, and it's this that Candace Owens likely doesn't know about, and most mainstream media will never report. Most of the Western media, left or right, have no framework to interpret Iran's moves because they don't understand the Messiah they're waiting for. But we as prophetic people must, because whoever holds the narrative holds the nation. And we got to understand God's report. And he mentions long before we understand CNN's report, etc., we have to understand what God is saying to the church about this. I'm going to go on to the next portion of this. And this is going to get more into the eschatology. This is I'm going to try to just read this a little bit. I'm not going to get too much into it when it comes to the transcript, because again, this is thorough information that he gives inside of this YouTube video, where he literally breaks down the eschatology. So you, everyday Americans, we as Christians can understand how they think in basically it's the modern day Islam and the brotherhood and what they're trying to accomplish. And so, and he ties this all in together. I would encourage you to watch this. He talks about Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, the thing that they're missing, and it is that this portion, the prophetic words, even that the this regime, Iranian regime, is trying to fulfill prophecy, and they can't have a Mahdi, which is their Messiah, come without war. They can't have that happen without war. And so, and it's also in the Quran. He goes into the Quran. He actually pulls out the actual scriptures in Quran and gives you where you can find those scriptures, so that way you can look them up. And guys, I did look these up myself, because again, like Inez said, you want to know the truth, you want to know what's happening. And then the Bereans also did this. When you see this in the Bible with Apostle Paul, it said that they show themselves to be studious and paraphrasing, because everything Paul was saying, they were looking it up, right? And that was commendable. So you can actually watch this word. You can look up the Quran. You can even type this in Google, whatever, even ChatGPT, to these actual scriptures, portions of scriptures, to see what he's actually talking about and how this ties into what Iran is trying to accomplish. And they can't accomplish it without, he mentions the big pig, America, and the little pig, Israel. And he also throws in some video footage from the regime leader of Iran, my brain being pregnant, Ayatollah
Khomeini.
From him as well. Say it again. Thank you.
Ayatollah Khomeini.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so all that's thrown in, you'll be able to see this thing spiritually. And we must elevate ourselves higher. I think this is extremely important, what God is saying, so we don't miss it because something seems right. We have to do that research and take that time, like Inez said, and I love what she said. There's no excuse for us. I've said that before too. There's no excuse for us. But I do sympathize with the people that have to work every single day and they're getting their news as fast as they can, and it's incorrect. And so there's a portion why my podcast exists and why I felt led by the Lord to do this, is to bring these things to light. In this day and age, we can't be deceived. We, the church, need to understand this. And in the final clip that I was going to play, I was like 12:16 to 15:34. I'm going to actually read this portion. I'm skipping down to the nitty gritty because it's long, and I'm reading it. So the transcript. So I'm going to go down to just the last portion of this video I was going to show you guys on this podcast. Now it's a 23-minute video. So I'm at portion or segment 12 minutes in was what I'm reading, but the whole thing is good. And again, you can take this to prayer, but he shows you exactly where he left prophecy inside of this video. He shows you prophecies that he's released years prior, year prior, months prior, that actually started to unfold, so you actually know who he is. And it's pretty amazing. But I'm going to start this just reading. Y'all bear with me. All right, here we go. I'll start here. So he says, why Iran's theocracy is eschatology by design. I want to give you the list they will never show you on any news, and Candace Owens has likely never been briefed on. Number one, Iran is the world's only 12 Shia theocracy since 1979. Islamic Revolution, Iran is ruled by Ayatollahs who openly claim to be preparing the world for the Mahdi, their Messiah. The supreme leader currently, Ayatollah Khamenei, isn't just a politician. He believes he's the custodian of the hidden imam's mission on earth. Number two, Iran's constitution mentions in article, you have it in MIMS, Article 5 and 110 of Iranian constitution, affirm the guardianship of the oh God, it's so distorted, the jurisdiction, which I'm gonna have to leave that out, guys. But let me get down to the bottom of this, because the portion I want to get to, which I encourage you guys to listen to the whole thing, is the challenge he makes to the church. I think this and he poses a few questions and on this. And again, he goes really, really deep into all this. Please forgive me for not being able to read this. Again, this is a transcript. I wish we had the video, but we don't. So let me just get to what the challenges he makes to us as the body of Christ, if you are a believer. So he says, let's see. The United States and others around the world must know this. So here are the questions CNN won't ask, Tucker Carlson hasn't asked, and Candace Owens may never understand. Are we watching politics while missing prophecy in disguise? Iran's actions aren't just foreign policy, they're eschatology obedience. Number two, can the church outlast a people who believe war accelerates their Messiah? We're scared of war, but what happens when your enemy wants one? Number three, if Iran is preparing for its Messiah, again, I ask you, are we preparing for ours? Jesus said to be ready. A ready question is, are we? Number four, is the church afraid of the end while Iran is weaponizing theirs by built missiles on theology? We've built sermons on comfort. And he said, pause, let that sink in. And now that you understand the spirit behind it, he goes more in depth into this. So that's at 15 minutes into this video. Okay, it's a 23-minute video together. So encourage you guys to watch that. If we can put that up, there we go. Thank you so much. So encourage you guys to check that out. My spirit-filled believers, check this out for yourself. And see where, understand where your stance need to be. Okay, it's very, very important that you are in the right alignment. The word of God says, how can two walk together unless they agree? So in recap, guys, make sure you watch that video. I hope that this episode has been very enlightening to you guys, to give you more understanding, more context. Inez Cyrus is brilliant in this area. She's done a whole lot, given up a lot to answer the call of God in this field. And one day me and her will dissect that with you guys, because her story is incredibly amazing and almost similar to mine, except for she took bigger hits than I did. But I'd love for her to dissect that, and she has been willing to share that. So one day we'll get to that, where she gets to share her actual story. Again, congratulations. Thanks to our troops who executed everything that they followed orders, executed smoothly the attack on those nuclear facilities without harming any Iranian citizens. And guys, I asked you guys, if you, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and standing with truth. Be sure to subscribe, to share, and then join me again Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern for our next deep dive. Until then, guys, pray, stay alert, stay free, stay safe,